So we're going to continue where we left off last week. I just want to say hello to everyone. I miss everyone, but Be'ezrat Hashem, today is a new day, a new week, and who knows what's in store for us. With good tefillot and good machshavot, hopefully Be'ezrat Hashem, we can get to a better place, everyone together. For those who don't know, last week on, I think Thursday, we tried something new. We called it Shmoozoom, where we schmoozed a little bit. You know, I had about, 25, 30 Chevrei Kehila logged on, and we just had a nice schmooze. My family was here, and we just talked about a lot of things. And one of the nicest things about it is that I think some people met others that they didn't even know who come to shul, and they didn't know each other. So that was a wonderful opportunity to get to meet each other. And bichlal, I hope to do more of these shmuzooms in the future. Maybe this week, hopefully maybe once a week. It would be great just to talk and shmooze without giving a shiur, just to really say hello. Kind of, what I do, what we try all to do on Shabbat when I shake everyone's hand and say Shabbat Shalom. So, when you give a shiur, you don't really have the chance to just talk and shmooze. So we wanted to do something like that. So Be'ezrat Hashem, hopefully it will work out as well. Tov, I'm going to continue. I'm going to share my screen in a minute. So we can start. We are now holding, for all those who just came in, we are now going to start perek Hey, the 5th chapter of Melachim Aleph. I will go back. I'll share a screen for a second so that we can just quickly go back and see what we actually learned. So let me just go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Is it? Every time I try to put just a picture here, I get Rini Becker here. Is a Yofi. I don't know why. It's you are a star today. You're in my window. So I'm just gonna go like this.
I have it the way you want it.
Oh, okay. Can't manage this. Hold on. Tov. All right, I'm going to start. I don't know. Now I have Larry here. Great to see everyone. Baruch Hashem.
Put your picture on and hit pin video, and that'll kick you on.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. Beseder. Tov. So last week, if you recall, we asked a very important question. We asked, who is Shlomo HaMelech? The reason why we asked it is because we weren't given any information to his character and why he was chosen to be a king. Rather, he was chosen because he was the son of HaMelech David. And unlike Melech David and Melech Shaul, we were told so many things about their character when they were younger, and we saw how they grew up and how they grew into the role. We want to see Shlomo HaMelech grow into his role as king, and hopefully we can learn something out of it. We also saw we saw this chart just to show the differences between Shlomo and David, his father, of the priorities. We saw that as far as the priorities of who's important to HaMelech Shlomo versus HaMelech David, we saw, over here, the first thing that Shlomo talks about is the Kohen, whereas in David HaMelech talks about his Ish Tzava, and the reason is very clear because David had to fight his way up to the throne. He had to fight in order to own to become king. Versus Shlomo, who was really given to him, and his job really is to build the Beit HaMikdash, which we're going to really see today. And you can see, the priorities are so clear for what the reasons are. We also saw the Netzivuyot. We saw how Shlomo HaMelech kind of dispersed and had all of his governors all over Medinat Israel, really, Eretz Israel. And we saw that it wasn't divided up by shvatim, but rather by geographic areas. And we came up with a couple of possibilities. One of them was he was trying to control Eretz Yisrael. He didn't want the shvatim to control their areas so that there wouldn't be some type of rebellion or something like that. We also saw that this was missing. Yehuda was missing. There was no real Netziv governor for Yehuda. Although I tried to do what we call in Hebrew ilutz psukim. We tried to force the psukim, and we took the first word Yehuda that was in the beginning of the first pasuk at the end of the perek, and we kind of like attached it to the end of the pasuk, and we said, this really means that there was a nitzivut, or the other possibility was that, there is protectia, and HaMelech Shlomo wanted to keep his area, his mamlacha, his territory, Mamlechet Yehuda, special, and therefore it could be that he didn't really take anything from his people. We can breathe interpretation to both of the possibilities. It's up. As we said before, the jury is out. We don't really know what the real reasons for why he left Yehuda without a Netziv or with a Netziv, but not taking any money from them. But what we're going to see today is something very important. We're going to get a little closer to understanding Shlomo HaMelech. If we know who David is, we know who Shaul is, we don't yet know Shlomo, but we're going to take a step forward today and really see something that we might have not seen before, or maybe didn't want to really believe in it. On Shabbat, we did something new. I started it last Shabbat as well, between Mincha and Mariv. I started to give a type of a shiur that is more like a tish, and then at the end, towards the end of the shiur, which was a very short shiur, it was about 15 minutes, we sang Shirei Seudah Shlishit. 20 people, a little bit more. There were people also on the street, and it was beautiful. It was just so beautiful. The emotion that was coming out of people's voices together, singing as a keilah, is something that I miss, and I'm sure everyone else misses it. And it was really, really beautiful. And I talked about Yirat Shamayim. And one of the things that I mentioned is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us all talents. He gives us unique talents. There was a time where I gave a shiur and I kind of drew a picture and I said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is such a great artist that he was able to create billions of human beings. And we all have eyes, ears, and mouths, and we all have a round-ish shape of a head, yet we all look different, right? Unless we're twins, identical twins. We all look different. And even identical twins, sometimes you can tell them apart. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu created billions and billions of people, of human beings, that we all look different. So if the exterior looks different, alachat kama v'chama, the interior, inside. And Hashem gives us all unique talents. And we have to use our talents. It's an obligation. We have to use our talents for this world to make it better. Hashem gives one person the talent of intellectualism, like he gave Rav Adin Steinzartz, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, and he changed the world. His brain was able to change how we learn Gemara, how we learn Mishnah and Torah, and the hundreds of articles that he's written are amazing. So that was his talent, and he uses talents. Other people have talent in teaching, others have in medicine and in engineering, and everyone has to use their talents because they were given to them by Hashem to be used. And when we don't use our talents, then we're not maximizing not only our potential, but who we're supposed to be in this world. And what we're going to see today is Shlomo HaMelech was also given a gift, but a gift for a specific task, for a specific tafkid that he must do. And we're going to ask, does he do that tafkid? And what else does he do with that talent that he was given, that God-given talent? So we're going to start learning the new perek Hey, and hopefully we'll be a little bit smarter, chacham lev, to really delve a little bit more into Shlomo's soul and really Shlomo's character. So let's start perek Hey. I'm going to start reading and just follow through. perek Hey, pasuk Aleph, chapter Hey, 5, verse 1, Aleph. ושלמה היה מושל בכל הממלכות, מן הנהר ארץ פלישתים, ועד גבול מצרים, מגישים מנחה ועובדים את שלמה כל ימי חייו. The first pasuk is telling us how vast and huge the mamlacha was. Eretz Yisrael was huge, and I have a couple of maps that I made that is going to show you really how gigantic and enormous Eretz Yisrael was in the time of Shlomo HaMelech. Pasuk Bet. ויהי לחם שלמה ליום אחד, 30 קור סולת ו60 קור קמח. Every day, amazing, every day, Shlomo HaMelech received food. Now, right here in front of you, we have the map. And we mentioned that it was divided into 12 because each governor that was in charge of an area was in charge of an entire month to make sure that the king has everything that he needs. So 30 days, 29, 30, 31, depending on the month. What quantities did he need? What was it? Look, in one day, 30 kor solet, ve-60 kor chem. Let me explain what a kor is. A kor is about 220 liters. 220 liters. So 30 kor solet, okay? So if we go up to explaining just in English what we're talking about, right? So the provisions of the day for Shlomo HaMelech, 30 kors of fine flour, solet is fine flour, and 60 kors of regular flour. So if I just do simple math, 220 times 30 times 30 is how much? How much? 220 times 30. What's the amount?
6,600.
6,600 liters or kilos, a liter is a kilo, of fine flour. 60 kor kemach. 60 kors of kemach, which is double that, which is what 6,600 times 2? Wow. 13,400, 200 liters of kemach, of regular flour. That's a lot. That's for one day, but that's not all, okay? Let's continue the psukim. 10 bakar bri'im, ve-20 bakar re'i, u-me'at tzon, I'm reading pasuk gimel, levad me'ayal u'tzvi v'yachmu u'barburim evusim. Right, 10 fat oxes, that's what he's talking about. 20, I guess, pature-fed cattle, 100 sheep. It's a lot. Besides deers, gazelles, fowl. It's amazing. That's in one day. Abarbanel, I looked up.
Was that for his personal use, or was that for the entire palace population?
No, it was really, I looked at the Barbanel because the numbers seemed ridiculous to me, because according to the Barbanel, this food, right, with all of what we just mentioned here, was good enough. He did a calculation, a long calculation. And Barbanel says it's good for 60,000 people per day. Now, 60,000 people, according to the Barbanel, were only the people in Yerushalayim surrounding his own palace that he needed. His army, or I guess some of his army, we'll see also how vast his army was too, right? To show what abundance Shlomo had. I mean, this is to just lesaber et ha'ozen, just to give you an idea with the Abarbanel. Nehemiah, okay, when Ezra and Nehemiah, he was the pchat of Yehuda, he was in charge of Yehuda. At his time, in his table, according to Nehemiah, he only had 150 people at his table. Shlomo HaMelech had 60,000 people. And that's why we have so much. I mean, I guess he had 60,000. We're talking about 6,600 liters of fine flour and 13,200 liters of just regular flour, plus all of the cattle and for one day. Obviously, the Navi is trying to show us how rich, how wealthy Shlomo Melech was. If that's for one day, I mean, it's ridiculous the numbers. And therefore, some of the newer modern academics try to say this is exaggerated, impossible. But the Navi says that's what it was, and we believe the Navi. And the Navi is saying this is what he had per day, which is amazing. But we're going to go back to that. Let's continue with the psukim. Now we'll look at the maps in a second. Pasuk Dalid, okay? כי הוא רודה בכל עבר הנהר, מתפסח ועד עזה, בכל מלכי עבר הנהר, ושלום היה לו מכל עבריו מסביב. We'll see the map in a second, which I show you here. Let's look at what he has here, okay? So this is Tifsach in front of you. Now, the yellow that is bordered is the Mamlacha of Shlomo. I'm going to show you in a minute. If you could see where Israel is, this is Haifa. I'll show you in a minute. But Tifsach, let's look at the borders. Tifsach is either over here. Tifsach, I looked it up in a map, trying to find out where Tifsach was, and it's South Khaleb in Syria. But it could be also here. There's some archaeologists who say that Tifsach is over here. But either way, this is the Euphrates over here, and Tifsach is about over here. Okay, so it's either over here, and down here is Aza, right? This is Gvul Mitzrayim. This is the Mamlacha of Shlomo HaMelech. Now, this is Israel today. Look at Israel right in front of you. Okay, this is Haifa, Yafo, Tel Aviv. I took this out of just a map from Google Maps. You just cut it, right? So this is Eilat over here, which is Gvul Mitzrayim, according to our Mikra. This is Jordan. So if I have Jordan knows over here, Damascus, Beirut, and look at how big the Mamlacha was. It's ridiculous. It's how huge the Mamlacha that Shlomo had. But this is not where all of Am Yisrael lived. Okay, Am Yisrael didn't live in this vast area because some of the areas he conquered and some of them were vasalim, right? Some of them had an obligation towards Shlomo and paid taxes towards Shlomo. But just take a moment, literally take a moment to see how big Mamlechet Shlomo is. This, if I outline here, let me just put my laser. This is Eretz Yisrael, okay, for those who want to know. This is the Golan area over here, okay? This is the Kinneret. This is our Gvul with Jordan. This is Yam HaMelach, and this is Eilat. This is Eretz Yisrael, right here. Whereas the Mamlacha of Shlomo is the whole yellow area all the way up here, which is about, I'd say, four times as big as Eretz Yisrael today. This is Shlomo HaMelech's Mamlacha. It's huge. It's gigantic. So let's go back to our map. This is, you can see in front of you, this is the Chalukah of the Shvatim. Okay, Asher and Naphtali. We saw this also last week when we looked at the different Nitziviyot, the governors, but here's the Chalukah. The division is really mamash according to Shvatim. Am Yisrael didn't live in these parts. They didn't live all the way up here in all these areas. Rather, these areas were conquered more or less by David HaMelech, his father. How do we know this? Because Shlomo HaMelech never fought any wars. He didn't fight any wars. So all of this must have been conquered, if not by David HaMelech, the power that David HaMelech left and the riches that Shlomo had just scared all of the surrounding nations around and caused them to really, really want to mamash pay tribute to Shlomo HaMelech out of fear, pure fear of the might that Shlomo HaMelech had. So if I show you, this is Aza over here. Okay, this is Aza, which paid tribute. This is where Peleshet was. Up here was Phoenicia. Okay, Phoenicia. So they also paid tribute to Shlomo HaMelech. So We didn't have any Shvatim that lived up here, but that's where Phoenicia was. This is Aram Damascus.
The share screen is off.
It's what?
The share screen is not on. We can't see what you're talking about.
Oh, really? Oh, so let me go back. Where did that happen? Screen. Thank you for letting me know, Larry. Can you see now? Is it shared?
It's on now.
Okay. So is it? Yeah, I'm recording. Is this where? Is this? We went through this. You saw this, correct?
Yeah, we saw that.
At what point was my screen not shared?
A little right after this one.
Okay, good, Yofi. So basically, with this screen, I was just showing everybody how big the Shlomo's kingdom was compared to Eretz Yisrael, right? This is Eretz Yisrael over here, Beirut, Damascus, Jordan, and really the yellow areas is the Mamlacha that Shlomo HaMelech had. And what I was showing in this screen is basically the different parts that the Jews actually lived in, right? We didn't live in all these areas. We just lived in the portions that were given to us by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So what were the areas over here for? They were here to make us rich, to make Shlomo HaMelech rich, and to be able to pour money into our kingdom and to pay tribute and to give Shlomo what he needed in order to build. We'll see in a minute the Beit Hamikdash. The areas here were controlled by Peleshet, but it was under the umbrella of Shlomo HaMelech. Okay, this was Phoenicia, as you can see over here, Phoenicia. And this is Aram Damascus, as I mentioned before. And Aram Damascus plays a very important part later on with Mamlechet Yisrael, with Achav. When Achav succeeds, but after him, we lose to Aram Damascus, and then later on the Bavlim come, and then the Ashurim after that. And up here are states that weren't controlled really by Shlomo HaMelech, but they did pay their taxes and dues to Shlomo HaMelech out of pure fear. So it just says something of how vast and how big our kingdom was. And that's why we can understand Shlomo HaMelech per day had so much. Now, in order to sustain this type of a kingdom, this type of territory, the vastness, the magnitude of what he has, the next psukim explain, Pasuk Vav, what he needed in order to control all this. But then again, remember, Shlomo HaMelech didn't have to fight any wars. So the bigger the army that he has, the more authority he really has, because people wouldn't want to fight against him. So, Pasuk Hey, right? Based on all of this, the Navi says the following: Vayeshev Yehuda v'Yisrael lavetach ish tachat gafno v'tachat te'inato midan ve'ad Beersheva kol Yemei Shlomo. He had peace and prosperity all of his years. He never had to fight wars. And Ish tachat gafno v'tachat te'inato. This is a niv. This is a symbolic to many other Sfarim in our Nevi'im have this. So if you go, for instance, to Sefer Micha, you don't have to, but I'll open over here. In Micha, perek Daled, Pasuk Daled, it says also, Vayeshvu ish tachat gafno v'tachat te'inato ve'ein macharid. I have a translation over here by Rav Kaplan. And this is what he writes: instead, every man will sit under his grapevine and under his fig tree without fear. That's what we're looking for. And when we talk about Yemot HaMashiach and Geulah, this right here, what you see in front of you, this is what we're looking forward to. Ish tachat gafno ve'ish tachat te'inato. We also have that also in Yoel as well, in Sefer Yoel. If you open perek Aleph Pasuk Yud Bet, also it says, because the grapevine, so when the Navi Yoel is trying to show the exact opposite of a situation where we are not in a good state, he says the opposite of what we just said now. He says, the grapevine has dried up and the fig tree has withered, etc. And the same thing goes for Sefer Chavakuk as well. The fig tree does not blossom. There is no yield on the vines. The olive produces his lean, etc., 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 which means that Shlomo HaMelech really had it all. He really, really had everything he needed for a Geula Shlema. We mentioned also last week that the end of perek Daled ended, if you go back to Pasuk Kaf, reminding us of Avraham Avinu. Yehuda v'Yisrael rabim kechol asher al hayam larov ochlim v'shotim usmeichim. But we also mentioned ochlim v'shotim usmeichim. That's very gashmi. It's very materialistic. And really, we see the first thing we're told about in the beginning of perek Hey is how much they ate or how much they had. But the next psukim also show us more of the riches and the wealth of Shlomo HaMelech. Pasuk Vav.
Also, it's of how much to influence people and keep them close. This was, the masses, the other nations, who knows?
Yes,
the enemies,
yes.
he could be feeding all of them just for the insecurity of the hashpa'ah.
Nachon, he has to be able to have a long hand, a long reach, because look at his kingdom. So he needs riches. He needs to be able to get to places. And that's also why the next pasuk says, Pasuk Vav, Vayi Shlomo 40,000 urvot susim lemirkavo, right? That's a lot. Right? That's he had 40,000 stalls of horses for his chariots. I mean, where do you even put all those 40,000 stalls of horses? That's a lot. Ushnei masar elef parashim, 12,000 horsemen, just territory. I mean, all of it, Yerushalayim, 40,000 stalls of horses. It's a ridiculous amount. We'll see later on where he got these horses from, but the Navi doesn't tell us this yet. He just says this is what he has. Let's continue. Pasuk Zayin, v'chilkelu hanitzavim ha'ele et hamelech Shlomo ve'et kol hakarev el shulchan hamelech Shlomo ish chadesho lo ye'aderu davar. Anybody and everyone that came to his table and ate there had everything that he needed. First course, second course, desserts, horses to get to places. He was able to send his people to anywhere, all the way up to Phoenicia, to Aram Damascus. He had everything that he needed. He established a perfect state, a state of Geulah, a state of Shalom. That's what we said here. That was Pasuk Daled. V'shalom haya lo mikol avadav misaviv. He had perfection. He had everything that he needed. Pasuk Chet. Ve'aseorim ve'ateren la'sosim ve'la'rachesh. He had everything that he needed for his animals as well. He wasn't lacking anything. Yaviu el hamakom asher yeh sham ish kemishpato. He was able to get to everywhere. He was able to go anywhere he wanted to go because he had everything. And these governors that we spoke about, they supplied provisions for the king all the time. Anywhere, they didn't let anything go. They were lacking nothing. Right? Barley also and straw for the horses. They had everything they needed. This is great. It's great that we were revered by the whole world, by the nations. We were very, very strong. Now, this is portraying what Shlomo had done with what he had. Now, I'm going to ask you a question, a real question. Now, think about it for a second. If you had all of this and you were king, what would you do? What kind of king would you be knowing the Torah? You know Sefer Dvarim, the Ne'um Ha'acharon of Moshe Rabbeinu. We mentioned this in our parsha, V'haya im shama tishmeu, ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, ve'shinantam levanecha. Right? We would like to create a country where we learn Torah, where we grow, where we represent God in this world. What is Shlomo HaMelech going to do with everything that he had? What would you do if you were the smartest man alive, the smartest woman alive? What would you do if you had everything? Literally, you were a king, revered. You controlled Eretz Yisrael Hashlema and some. You were known to be brilliant, which is the next pasuk, and you were lacking nothing, and you didn't have any wars. You know, one of the things that we, in our state, in Eretz Yisrael, right now, in Medinat Yisrael, one of the things that we pool all of our taxes into, and, you know, one of the biggest parts of the government, of the Knesset, of the Kalkala in Israel, is poured into our army, because without a strong army, we're not going to be here, right? We have all these countries surrounding us. They want to take us out. So we have so many worries. We can't just live our lives and enjoy and have peace and prosperity because we don't have. We have to always be, you know, ready. We are in Matzav Cherum ever since 1948. Still in Matzav Cherum. Shlomo Melech didn't have that. He had no worries of war. Now, to be honest, to be fair, it could be the reasons why he didn't have any wars, because he was very strong and he had his troops all over the place and everyone was scared to battle with Am Yisrael. But either way, he had peace, he had prosperity. What is he going to do with all that time that he had? What is his job, his tafkid? And that's our next pasuk. And this is very, very important. This is, I think, one of the most important prakim in Shlomo HaMelech's life. Perek pasuk tet. I'm going to read. But in your mind, what would you do if you were king? You know, what would a Rav do? What would what would you do? You're just a parent, you know. Would you create schools to teach Torah? Would you create, you know, great chesed? I mean, everyone, it seemed that everyone had what they needed. Shlomo Melech could have given, you know, tzedakah to anybody he wanted. He could have made sure there were no poor people in the entire community of Am Yisrael, of Eretz Yisrael. He could have created an amazing country. This is what happens. Perek Hey Pasuk Tet. We're reminded what talent Shlomo has. I started today's shir by saying we were all given a talent. And we were all given a talent to use in this world. That is our tafkid. That is our jobs. Let's see what tafkid Shlomo has. Vaiten, I'm reading Pasuk Tet. Vaiten Elohim chokhma leShlomo utvuna harbe meod verochav lev kachol asher al sfat hayam. Hashem gave Shlomo wisdom and understanding beyond measure, a breadth of mind like the sand on the seashore. ותרב חוכמת שלמה מחוכמת כל בני קדם ומכל חוכמת מצרים. So that Shlomo's wisdom surpassed the wisdom of all the people of the East and all the wisdom of Egypt, which was considered a big superpower up until David HaMelech and Shlomo. I mean, he really had something unique. He was a genius, a true genius. Remember, this was given to him by Hashem. Yes, he was definitely very intelligent from before too. We saw that when David HaMelech mentioned, before Shlomo had received the gift from Hashem to be a good statesman, he was intelligent, he was smart. But now he's become a genius. So much so, Pasuk Yud Aleph, Vayechka mikol ha'adam me'itan ha'ezrachi והימן וחלקול ודרדה בני מחול ויהי שמו בכל הגויים סביב. He was wiser than all other men and women, wiser than Eitan HaEzrachi, Himan, Kalkol, Darda. I'm not going to go into each of these individuals. They're not important for our point here. His fame, this is important. Shlomo Melech's fame was surrounded all the nations completely. Everyone knew about his chokhmah. What is he going to do with his chokhmah? We know he writes Mishlei, Kohelet, but we'll see in a minute what his job really is. What did he do with it? Vaidaber, Pasuk Yud Bet, Vaidaber, 3,000 mashal. I mean, the numbers of this too is pretty amazing. 3,000 mashal, Vayhi Shiro, Chamisha, Va'alef. He spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005, really down to detail, pretty exact. So if we thought that 13,200 liters of wheat, of flour was a lot. Look what he did with his mind. 3,000 proverbs, 3,000, 1,005 songs. That's a lot. But even more, the Navi continues, וידבר על העצים מן הארז אשר בלבנון, ועד האזוב אשר יוצא בקיר, וידבר על הבהמה ועל העוף ועל הרמס ועל הדגים. He spoke to trees, the cedars that in Arzeh Lebanon, in Lebanon, to the azov, the hyssop that grows up out of the walls, right? Spoke also to the beasts, the birds, reptiles, the fish. He can speak to everything. He was able to have all chokhmot. A guy like that, a genius of geniuses, what are you going to do? Well, this is an opportunity. The next pasuk is giving Shlomo HaMelech an opportunity. What to do with his intelligence. Pasuk Yudaled, ויבואו מכל העמים לשמוע את חוכמת שלמה, מאת כל מלכי הארץ אשר שמעו את חוכמתו. People of all nations came to hear the wisdom of Shlomo HaMelech from all over the world. We'd heard about his wisdom. So, was he able to be an Avram Avinu? Was he able to be Megayer everyone? Is Shlomo HaMelech Yemot HaMashiach because he has everything that it takes? Everyone is flocking to Shlomo HaMelech. Now, if he has that genius, why not convince all of these nations to let go of the Baal, of the Ashtaroth? We're going to learn about that during Sefer Melachim. To worship HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Mamash Yemot HaMashiach. Avram Avinu was not called a Chacham. Moshe Rabbeinu, he's not seen as a Chacham. It doesn't say that he was a Chacham. Yosef, well, about Yosef it says he was a tzaddik. Kol asher hu oseh Hashem matzliach biyado also. It doesn't say anything about a Chacham. Regarding Shlomo HaMelech, he's a Chacham. What is he going to do with it? He has the opportunity. Pasuk Yudalid, right here, black and white. Le'avi limot HaMashiach. Maybe he is the Mashiach. Maybe the gift that he was given was meant to convince the world, to show Ki mitzion teitzeh Torah. I would like to argue that that's not his job. His job is something different. Because like I mentioned before, in the entire Torah and Nevi'im, and I looked this up when I did a search, the only people that were given as a gift, given, here's Chochmat Lev, were those who built the Mishkan. And wait for it, Shlomo HaMelech. Those were the two groups, the group that built the Mishkan and Shlomo HaMelech. Those were the only people in the history of our Tanakh. I'll show you. In Sefer Shmot, perek Lamed Aleph, when Hashem is getting ready to choose those who are going to build the Mishkan, it says, Pasuk Bet, Re'ei Karati b'shem Betzalel ben Uri ben Chur lemate Yehuda. And this is what it says in Pasuk Gimel, Va'amale oto ruach Elohim bechokma ubitvuna uvdat uvechol melacha. Had I not known, I would have said this is exactly what's going on with Shlomo. Shlomo was given this exact theme, chokma and tvuna. Pasuk Daled, לחשוב מהחשבות, לעשות בזהב ובכסף ובנחושת, ובחרושת אבן, למלות מחרושת עץ, לעשות מלאכה, abundance of גשמיות, to do what with it? ואני הנה נתתי איתו את אהוליה בן אחיסמך, למתי דן, ובלב כל חכם לב נתתי חוכמה, ועשו את כל אשר ציוויתיך. They were given חוכמה and תבונה, and also we see here down here lev, the three exact adjectives, חוכמה, תבונה, and lev, were given to Shlomo HaMelech, a gift by Hashem, just like Bezalel and Oliav were given as well. Their job was to build the Mishkan. Let's see another pasuk in Shmot Lamed Vav, skipping to another parsha. What did they do with it? Ve'asa Bezalel ve'Oliav v'chol ish chacham lev asher natan Adonai chokhma u'tvuna bahema ladat la'asot et kol melechet avodat hakodesh lechol asher tziva Adonai. That is the job of somebody who has chokhmat lev, to build the Mishkan. Not just to be intellectual, professor, teacher, but rather chokhmat lev is to build the Mishkan. And that's what's given to Shlomo HaMelech. That's what we just read. Melachim Aleph, perek Hey, Vayiten Elohim chokhma li Shlomo, utvuna harbe meod, verochav lev. Oops. Verochav lev kachol asher asat hayam. But there's a difference between the Mishkan and the Beit HaMikdash. The Mishkan was smaller. It was in the desert. And it was easier to build than the Beit HaMikdash. And that's why in Pasuk Yud, Vaterev chokhmat Shlomo mi chokhmat kol bnei kedem umikol chokhmat Mitzrayim. He needs chokhmah, tvuna, and lev bigger than anyone else because he's about to build the house of God. And sure enough, immediately afterwards, Pasuk Tetvav of our perek, what is the first thing that Shlomo does after he received all this chokhmat lev? Vayishlach Hiram melech tzor et avadav veShlomo, etc., etc., etc. He's getting ready to build the Beit HaMikdash. That is Shlomo HaMelech's job. To build the Beit HaMikdash. That is his talent. That is what he's supposed to do. How do we know this? Because we were told that David HaMelech wanted to build the Mishkan, wanted to build a house for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what David HaMelech said to Hashem. I want to build a Mishkan. I want to build you a home. And Hashem says, no, but don't worry, your son will build a Beit HaMikdash, and that's what's going to happen. Shlomo is about to build a Mikdash. And that is why he doesn't need the traits of a king, because his job is to build the Beit HaMikdash. But of course, since he's already a king, he also needs to be able to control the area. He needs to be able to control all of this, the large territory that he was given by his father David, but more importantly by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He didn't have any wars because HaKadosh Baruch Hu made sure that he didn't have any wars. He didn't have to worry about it all because HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, you have one task. Your job is to have chokhmat lev, to build the Beit HaMikdash. And the truth is, when we think about it, that is really about who Shlomo HaMelech is. He was the builder of the Beit HaMikdash. Was he a successful king? Was he a successful leader? It says shalom, it's true. But shalom comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom comes from Hashem wanting us to have shalom. We say that in Kriyat Shema. It will be shalom if we do what we're supposed to do. But Shlomo HaMelech, what he does with his amazing mind, we'll see as we go forward, he uses it for other things. He doesn't convince the world about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if he tried, he fails. He doesn't succeed. Because nobody at this time in our history, other than Am Yisrael, believes in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, believes in Melech Melachim. And we're going to see even later, towards the end of Shlomo HaMelech's life, well, at least as depicted here in our Sefer, Shlomo HaMelech sins because he doesn't use his intelligence dafka for Torah and mitzvot. Otherwise, maybe he would have been more of a perfect king. but he has a job to do. I cannot blame Shlomo HaMelech. He was given a job. The chokhmah that he was given was not the kind of chokhmah that Gdol Hador has. A Gdol Hador's chokhmah is to delve into Torah and mitzvot. His chokhmat lev was the kind of chokhmah that Bezalel had and that Oliav had, to build the Mishkan, to build the Beit HaMikdash. And that's what he ends up doing perfectly. He does his job perfectly, but everything around it, that is who Shlomo really is. The task to build the Beit HaMikdash came from Hashem. Hashem gave him the smarts, the chokhmat lev, and he did it perfectly. Because that was his job, given as a gift to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Somebody who's born with a musical ability has an obligation to be a Beethoven, to be a Mozart, to be a Bach. Somebody who was born like Rav Adin Steinsaltz, Zichrono Livracha, really, it's very difficult. He was a great man. And he did amazing things with his mind. Shlomo was Chokhmat Lev, and he did an amazing thing. He built, we'll see later, he built the Beit HaMikdash. Something that David, his father, couldn't do, wasn't allowed to do, but he did. So everything around it, that's who Shlomo HaMelech really is. He's a king that has abundance of food, horses, and we'll see later on that those horses he got from Mitzrayim directly against what HaKadosh Baruch Hu asked of him. And then later on also, he brings in the Baal as well. He brings in other gods. He marries thousands of wives. Everything that Hashem tells him not to do, but that is mibchira chofshit. To be a Chocham Lev, to be able to build the Beit HaMikdash, that was given to him by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that he does perfectly. He was a great, great builder of the Beit HaMikdash, just like Bezalel ben Ov, he was even more than them. And that's why we just read that his chokhmah was more than all Bnei Kedem, because the Beit HaMikdash is bigger and better and nicer than the Mishkan. So it has to be that he's more than Bezalel and Oliav. But everything else that we're going to read about Shlomo, that is him and only him. This is his task. This is his job. You know, what is true modesty? Anava. Somebody is a great basketball player, and somebody asks that person, are you a great basketball player? If he says, no, I'm really not a good basketball player, well, that's not anava. That's just not being honest. Yes, if somebody's a great basketball player, he must say, yes, I am a good basketball player, but it comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The talent is from Hashem. I didn't do anything about it. Yes, I cultivated it, I worked at it, that is me. I worked hard to be a better basketball, but the God-given talent of being able to shoot, having the athletics, being athletic, that comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So anava means, yes, I am a good basketball player because it came from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shlomo Melech was a great builder of the Beit HaMikdash because that's what Hashem gave him. But what does he do with it beyond that task? What does he do beyond that job, that tafkid of building the Beit HaMikdash? Did he create perfection for Am Yisrael? Did he create a world where we learn Torah mitzvot like Moshe Rabbeinu did, teaching the Zkenim, V'azkenim Nevinim, Yoshua, v'chulei, v'chulei, v'chulei? Did he do what Avram Avinu did with not as much intelligence and not as much riches by converting people? He had the opportunity, but he doesn't do that. So when we read, starting next week, perek, the end of perek Hey, going into perek Vav, which really is the beginning of the bniyah, the building of the Beit HaMikdash, well, that's because that was the task given to him by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Without the Chokhmat Lev, he wouldn't have been able to build it. Just like Bezalel was given the Chokhmat Lev from Hashem. Because to build a house for HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world, we don't have what it takes. So we need extra. And that's the Chokhmat Lev. Everything else, that is Shlomo. So we now can tell who Shlomo HaMelech really is. Let's divide him into two. Let's divide Shlomo HaMelech. There's the Chacham Lev who builds the Beit HaMikdash, and there's everything else. Everything else is who Shlomo HaMelech, the person, the human being, is. The builder of Beit HaMikdash, well, that is somebody who was given a task and he does it marvelously. He does it perfectly. So we're going to, as we go forward to read, we're going to make that division. We're going to see who Shlomo HaMelech, the person, is, and who Shlomo HaMelech, who was given the task to build the Beit HaMikdash, is. And those are really the two different avenues, the two different shvilim that we're going to learn about Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo HaAdam and Shlomo HaChacham Lev. B'ezrat Hashem, next week, hopefully we'll delve into the beginning of Bniyat Beit HaMikdash, and this is going to be fun. We'll learn about what it looked like. We'll learn about how beautiful Shlomo HaMelech really built the Beit HaMikdash, how he was a great shaliach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to build a Beit Tfilah, Beit Mikdash, Shebo Shachar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Be'eretz Yisrael, and how he longed to go back to the days of this marvelous Beit HaMikdash that Shlomo HaMelech built. אז שיהיה שבוע טוב.